Hey everybody, welcome to the Puck Drops here. This is a totally new video. It's a totally new series I'm doing. You may know that I'm in college and that I'm doing well in there, obviously, as well as I do my Puck Drops here videos. So we're going to do a little college mix. I'm grading all the NHL teams that have not made the playoffs or have lost in the playoffs, but by GPA rate. So you have 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're ranking through the goaltending, the centers, wings, coaching, management, defense, goalies, as well as such. I will bring up one young player that I think will step up through and needs to step up, and I'll bring in talk about an older player that needs to step up or may be traded for the franchise. This one is on the Anaheim Ducks. We're going to start with them alphabetically ordered. If you're missing a team, if you're a fan of a team like the Boston Bruins or the Carolina Hurricanes that doesn't come in through, and you're not seeing your video on this team, they're not being graded because your team's still fighting for a Stanley Cup. So there's that. And obviously, yes, I will have a final grade, a final GPA on every team, and that is going to be listed through as an average grade. These are my opinions. These are what I believe. And if anyone wants to have a sort of discussion through, anyone can hop on and make a comment, ask me a question about their team. But this one is specifically on the Anaheim Ducks. I will also be having a series coming through at some time, not sure when I'm going to make it, but about not the entire documentary about a team, but I'm 19 years old, so I've lived throughout the entire 21st century. So it's going to be just a word of me speaking documentary of every NHL team throughout the last 19 and 20 years of play. A few of those of existence. Where you talk about the Minnesota Wild, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Vegas Golden Knights. So we'll first start with the position for the Anaheim Ducks that is listed the most prevalent, and it's the most quote-unquote sexy pick, and that is the center position. For the center, as I pull it up for the Anaheim Ducks, you have Ryan Getzlaf, Derek Grant, Adam Henrique, both who were acquired from trades last season, the season before. Ryan Kessler, who's an alternate captain, who has been in for the Ducks for 5 years, 5 seasons. Carter Rowney and Devin Shore. Most of the center depth on the Anaheim Ducks is it's smaller and it's younger because this is a team that had been in the playoffs for a long time. About, I believe, it was 6 out of 7 years straight in the playoffs. But a team that highly digressed last year. And if you look at the centers and how they did specifically, and you look at the standing of the 80-point team that was supposed to win the division possibly, Getzlaf had good numbers, but Perry did not. He was a guy that I'll talk about later in the episode. The numbers were down. Getzlaf had the points and the assists that were needed. The stat line was 67 games played, 14 goals and 34 assists, 48 points. Decent, but for Getzlaf standards, not good at all. Then when you look at Corey Perry, the second guy for the Anaheim Ducks, you take a look at his point status, only 31 games played. He, a few years ago, was a top-tier player in the National Hockey League, and 6 goals, 4 assists for 10 points is dreadful. It is horribly atrocious. 27 penalty minutes for only 31 games played. Not very good. The center depth has to improve. And you want to look at Kessler and Ryan Kessler, a 60 game played, and he only had 5 goals, 3 assists, and 8 points. So the center depth was not there at all, at any shade. And then Devin Shore, a guy that was traded from Dallas, he had one of the better point statuses with 29 points, 10 goals, and 19 assists. And as of that, For the Anaheim Ducks, we take a look at their their wingers. Just a second. And Ricard Raquel is a guy that specifically you think of the speed and the power. He's definitely one of their better players. And just as I pull it up, I will have the stat on Ricard Raquel. Yes, we'll go to wingers now. For centers, I would give the GPA a 1.0. Not very good. Ricard Raquel, you look at the winger, he has grown Perry and Getzlaf, become probably the best player on this Ducks team. I believe he is. But injuries, again, being a problem for this entire roster. 69 games played for Ricard Raquel. And 18 goals scored with 25 assists and 43 points for the Swede. 6 power play goals. That's a good amount, especially for a sniper of his caliber. But you seem to see that where this drops off is the wingers they lose their depth and they lose their speed. Andrew Kasha, a good forward, but 11 goals and 9 assists, 20 points for 30 games played. It's a good amount, but your wingers have to do better. Jakob Silfverberg was a player who had played well in his career. 43 points. It's a good team. I like their wingers, but they've got to improve with their speed. They got to improve scoring because this is a team that I don't know if they will make the playoffs next year, but I think they will. Believe it or not, I believe they have the potential to jump back into the postseason race. And I don't know if they're good enough to win the division, but they're good enough to make a run into the playoffs next season. But they have to know what they're doing with their goal scoring. But their wingers have played far better, and they have been better than the center depth. So I put the wingers at a Keel 3.0. Or you know what, a 2.8 GPA. A 2.8 GPA for the Anaheim Duck wingers. And now look at their defense. And the leader of this defense has been Cam Fowler. And he's been he's up to be a scoring defender. And the goals, he's a goal scorer. Even as a defender, he's a goal scorer. And the goal scoring in the games played alarmed me. With 59 games is not good for your top defenseman. But he played for less than 60 games, but he had 5 goals. But the 18 assists isn't really great, but for 59 games, it's a good amount. And with only 20 penalty minutes, that also helps. A power play goal. He's a solid defenseman. And I like that they have that for their squad. And you look at some others that go down. Young Gooley, Brendan Gooley, he's going to be a guy that's going to step up the next few years because the Ducks have not been great. He'll have more ice time. Hampus Lindholm's been their second guy they've had for a long time. Good skater. 76 games played, which is the most by any Duck this season, Duck skater. 6 goals and 22 assists. The goals alarm me, but the assists are nice. 28 points, though, is not a good point total for another puck-traveling defenseman. And, again, 1 power play goal. The defense is okay. You got a younger like Holzer and, of course, Manson, who is their other third big-time defenseman. A good amount of games played, 74 games played, but 3 goals and 13 assists, only 16 points for another puck-moving defenseman is dreadful. Nothing on the power play. 62 penalty minutes. Nothing in overtime. No game winners. 96 shots. The shot percentage, 3.1 towards goal. So it's been rough for them. I would put them at about right there with a .8 GPA for the defenseman. Now we look at the goaltenders. Big-time goaltender that they've been riding in the postseason for the last few times is Josh Gibson for the Anaheim Ducks. Josh Gibson is a 25-year-old netminder, and he played 58 games this regular season, which is not very good for the Anaheim Ducks. But in the 26 wins and 22 losses, which is less state of his play because he had some really good stretches, and he played well this season. But he was injured for a long time throughout mid-stretches, and by the time he really got back from his injury, the team had already sunk and was fighting for a playoff spot and really just fighting it and not in a good position at all. So John Gibson. But I liked his play. He's going to have to stay healthier, though. Chad Johnson is a young goaltender he's a backup, not a young goaltender. Excuse me, 32 years old. He's played all over the league. Also Ryan Miller, and that becomes an issue. John Gibson is a young player, but if your backups are aging and older, Ryan Miller, who is 38 years old, and we know Ryan Miller just a good milestone for the Ducks. He won he got the all-time record for winningest goaltender in American history, which is an incredible accomplishment for him and for the state of American hockey. But you look at his games played, only 20 games played, and 8 wins and 7 losses, not very good. 2 of those in overtime and 1 in the shootout. Decent for Miller, but not great for a backup. And Chad Johnson played 19 games this season, and he had only 2 wins to 11 losses. That's startling. And that's why I put the goaltenders, because of the injuries, at 2.5 GPA. And we switch away from the team and we look to the players. We look to the management and coaching. Coaching was pretty dreadful. It started with of course the head coach that the Anaheim Ducks had, Randy Carlyle, former Leafs coach and also former Ducks coach. And he finally was given the can and booted this year. But for the Anaheim Ducks, it was needed because they eventually brought in Bob Murray, who is the general manager / coach. And they ended well. They ended out of the playoffs, but Bob Murray will not be the coach for much longer. He'll be looking for another head coaching job. But if there needs to be a really competent head coach out there that they need to find. They can't take a Chiarelli. They need to find a coach and management to support them. So with the tire fire, not balancing injuries, not balancing players, and understanding how to win consistently in the league with a faster league and going back to the gargantuan slow Ducks of the past, the coaching to me takes a 0.5 on the GPA. So basically an F, a 0.5, very bad. For the management, I would put this at I'd actually put this management at a 3. I think the management did a good job of working what they have and selling the pieces that need to be sold to build through the draft, because that's what they're going to need to do. The Ducks may be bad for a few years, but they're rebuilding their team for another run through the playoffs if they can get to that point. So for the Anaheim Ducks, of course, I would then say, of course, a really good player who I think is the best player needs to step up. A lot of people say Gibson, but I don't think it's Gibson. I think he's stepped up enough, and I think he's a great player. I think the best player that needs to put the team on his back right now is Rickard Rakell, moving into the next few seasons through his contract. And I think for the young player, I really look up. I like Max Comtois. Max Jones, who played a few games in the National Hockey League this year, is a skater you really look at and a player you really look at to be that young star. And an older player, it's gotta get it through him and has to really battle through this. He might be traded, but he's got to battle through these next few years, is aging Corey Perry. I love Corey Perry. He's been one of my favorite Ducks since I've paid attention to hockey. past the Korea era and the Niedermeyer era. But he's got to get his stuff figured out. Ducks has had a disastrous year, so my final GPA, my final grade on them would be a 1.2. A 1.2 GPA grade for the Anaheim Ducks. I hope you liked this video. It was a little jumbled as I'm figuring it out, but I thank you, Ducks fans. If anyone wants to come and watch the video later, it's just going to be about to be uploaded. Really interesting. Try to comment on it. Hit the sub button, like. I really think this is a cool topic. Many of you think what the GPA or regular grade they should have gotten here in study time for the Ducks. That's great. The next video is going to be on the Arizona Coyotes. So I look forward to that. So have a great day, guys, or night, and happy hockey.